gotta switch my page. I don't think it works to do the intro.
The previous
one? Yeah,
no.
It doesn't work.
No.
Let's see. Okay. So, as you all know, it's the science of art tonight, and that's what we're here for. And we're so lucky. I am lucky to introduce Ian Garland, who I have worked with before. He still kind of works here.
Yes.
Part-time. Very, very
Super
part-time. Super part-time. We did a goodbye party for him, though, so I kind of think he's out the door. He was amazing, and he would always dress up for all of our costume contests, and I won't embarrass you with what those things might have been.
You could talk about the dinosaur.
I was thinking about the unicorn.
Oh, the unicorn.
The
yeah,
unicorn.
The unicorn.
Okay. But he's amazing, and he's so much fun, and you guys are in for such a treat tonight. So first I have to say the official announcements. Welcome to Social Science, supported by Highland Capital Management, Park Place Dealerships, and Jack Daniels. Yeah, there we go. Okay, wait. Jack Daniels. There we go. Please drink responsibly. Okay, I'm very pleased to welcome our second speaker this evening, Ian Garland. Yay, otherwise known as the Kilter Crafter. Where's the Legos? Okay,
no.
Is it keep passing? Did we go down this side? Okay, it's going, okay.
Oh, of course it fails right at the moment we get started.
Oh.
Always.
Oh no, okay, keep going,
All
keep
right.
going. Sometimes you have to look at a world a little off-kilter to find inspiration, and that's exactly what the Kilter Crafter does. Though the crafting world is mostly a female-dominated industry, Ian has found his place using some outside-of-the-box creativity and humor, as you will see tonight. He's been crafting and creating videos for YouTube for almost 5 years. Actually, somebody came up and fan-geeked him earlier. Yeah. And took a picture with him. So he's been on YouTube for 5 years, has over 8,200 subscribers, and has uploaded 340 videos so far. Maybe you all will be part of the video. Actually, we're live, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
We're live on YouTube.
Say hi to YouTube, everyone.
Hi, YouTube! Yay! So we're going to join Ian as the Kilter Crafter. He talks about his creative process, the crafting industry, his failures and successes, and why he loves crafting. Let's give him all a round of applause. Yay! Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here tonight. It's a lovely, intimate audience tonight, so thank you guys for being here, really appreciate it. I'm Ian, the Kilter Crafter on YouTube, also known as just Ian. Works too. And like Mary said, I've been on YouTube for a little over 4 years now, almost 5, and it's been a wild journey, and I'm happy with what I've done, but I've definitely had a few mishaps along the way. I'm not your typical crafter, and sometimes things definitely don't go the way I expect. I got the 10. That was a hurl. I got a That hurt. Well.
Hi everyone, oh my god, I'm so excited. I went to the store today and I got all of the embellishments because they were all on sale. So I decided to put them all on my card. Isn't it gorgeous?
Camera falls. Excellent. Never hit the record button. Said it was. That was a tractor.
So you guys were saying, right, that tomorrow's landscaping and we're gonna give. What happened to Ian?
So as you can see, I'm definitely not your average crafter. A little off kilter, that's where the name comes from, and I've taken it wholeheartedly and ran with it. So it's been a fun journey, but definitely a little bit of an interesting one. As you notice, I'm noticing that I don't have the beard in most of those. So a little bit different, but I've grown up over my YouTube career, and it's been a lot of fun. Going with that. Let me start off at the beginning. What is a maker? A lot of the people that we have in our lives are makers, and they don't even realize what a maker is, right? There's this community that's out there that's called the maker community. And what is a maker exactly? Well, the definition of a maker is someone that it's someone that makes. I mean, it's simple, but a lot of times people don't realize that they're makers. So does anybody else out there, does anybody code? You're a maker, right? We don't think of that as being a maker, but that's being a maker. Does anybody sew? Excellent, that is also being a maker. So a lot of times whenever we're in the maker community, sometimes we don't even realize that we are a maker. So what is a maker? Well, I'm a maker, and so are all of you in different ways. You may not feel artistic or like you're a part of that community, but everybody in their own form or fashion has a way of making and contributing something to our society, which is the best part about making. It's about learning. I recently had the opportunity to read an awesome book. How many of y'all like Mythbusters? Yeah, those, exactly right there. Adam Savage, one of my favorite shows is Mythbusters. But of course, one of my favorite people on there is Adam Savage. He's wild, he's crazy, he's way out there with all of his ideas. And if you've watched Mythbusters, you know that Adam is definitely the wild and crazy one, where Jamie is definitely more the refined and smooth process, while Adam just goes at it with a hacksaw and tries to make something out of nothing. Had the chance to read his book. I highly suggest it for everyone because it talks a lot about being a maker and what being a maker involves. We all have a responsibility as a maker to share our knowledge with everybody else. And so whenever you're a maker, maybe you don't have exactly the same craft as someone else, but you're able to share some of your knowledge across. And that's very important in the maker community, is being able to share that. It's not about, oh, I made this, I'm keeping this, it's mine. It's about sharing it out across the globe and being able to share that information so that way we can share the tools and be able to really make our own world better, right? That's what the main thing about being a maker is how can we make the world better? Even if it's a silly, outlandish robot that's only there to pour a soda for you, it's all about being a maker and making this world a better place, right? So I take that to heart in my videos and in my crafting, and y'all are probably wondering, like, how did you get started doing all of this, YouTube and crafting? I graduated from UNT in 2014. I graduated with a degree in technical theater focus in light design. And it was a great experience for me, but I kind of thought, like, what's next? What do I do now? That's not a common degree, and I can't exactly walk out into the corporate world with it, although it applies in many ways, which corporations don't exactly see how those puzzle pieces fit together. I was kind of figuring out, like, what do I do now? How do I make this work? This is an example of a light design that I did for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf at the University of North Texas. Love this show a lot, and I'm very pleased with this light design, and it came out really, really well. But once I graduated, I'm like, what do I do now? So I was going to continue on this path of being a lighting designer. I was going to take a year off, kind of figure stuff out, and then go to grad school for light design, and go along that path, go up to New York, be on Broadway, do all that kind of stuff. Didn't quite happen the way I thought it was going to, but as I'm going along that path, there's this thing in lighting called a Gobo. It's basically a cookie cutter for light, okay? So I graduate, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I'm like, oh man, I would really like to create my own Gobos. They're made out of metal, so they're not easy to make usually. So I'm trying to figure out how can I make this so that way I don't have to spend, because custom Gobos are like 60 bucks or sometimes even more expensive depending on what you're doing. So super expensive. How can I do this for cheaper? How can I make this? How can I make this and make it my own? Ran across this machine. It was about this time that the Cricut Explore machine came out. And I was like, oh, I think I could definitely work with this. Let's see what all I can do with this machine. So I bought one, jumped on YouTube, started researching how to use it, what to do it with, and guess what I found most often on YouTube? Crafting. Crafters. Okay, cool, fine. I'm not going to use it for that, but I'm going to go along this path, and I'm going to watch how to use my machine, right? So I start watching, and there was this person called Melody Lane, and she has about 10,000 subscribers, I think it was at this point. I'm like, cool, I'm watching her videos, and she's doing a lot of cool crafts and stuff like that, but not really what I'm looking for. So I'm learning from her. It's cool. It's awesome. We'll keep going with that. So anyways, I keep working on it, and I slowly start to befriend this person. So I befriend Melody Lane, and she introduces me to a couple other crafters. Now granted, she at this point is halfway across the country, and I don't know her personally, but I'm a part of her group, right? I'm part of her crafting group. Again, mostly women, mostly making cards and scrapbooks and stuff. She introduces me to both Tabitha Carroll and Crafts by Two, Ken and George. So all three of these people, or excuse me, four of these people, we all join together and we start a group and we start doing YouTube videos together, we start doing social media together, we start just kind of integrating our videos together. And as we're going along this path, I'm like, maybe I should start a channel. And they're like, yes, do it, absolutely. So I start a channel and get going with these, and it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. Like, how many of y'all have ever watched the behind the scenes of shooting a movie? There's a lot of work that goes into it, right? Think about that, but on smaller scale, right? You have to figure out what you're going to be shooting. You have to figure out how long is that going to take. It's all over the place. It's crazy, right? So we're having a great time, and we're going along with it. Great. And I create some really cool, if I do say so myself, some really cool cards. I'd like to show some of them for you. I'm mostly a card crafter. I mostly make greeting cards and stuff like that, but you'll see a couple other projects that I've worked on as we advance through these. So some really basic kind of cool stuff, birthday cards, a friend of mine was moving away, so I gave him the going away card. We got Halloween. I love Halloween. You're going to notice that a couple of times, but just some basic cards, nothing too crazy. You'll notice also that I try to stick with the masculine kind of theme, although it's not always easy to do that. I like this one in the far side there. As you spin the wheel, you can actually see where you can spin that wheel. It changes the faces of the jack-o'-lantern. So that's pretty fun. Okay, I gotta say, this one's pretty fun. I like it. Again, I'm using my Cricut to create this, and a lot of the cards that you're seeing here, I've either used a small portion, I've made something on the Cricut, or I've used a small portion of something from the Cricut in order to do that. I like rainbows, I can't help it. Okay, so the one on the right here, that was an anti-Valentine's Day present that I created because around Valentine's Day, YouTube, blogs, all of these great places are filled with Happy Valentine's Day, hearts and birds and all of this great stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I just don't want to kill anyone. So I created this anti-Valentine's Day present using the Cricut to do some iron-on material onto this pillow. So. Also like shaker cards, those are a lot of fun over here on the right. You put little bits and bobs inside of them, and it's a lot of fun whenever the recipient gets them in the mail, because they start shaking it and they're like, what is this? They hear all sorts of noises coming from the envelope. And of course some unicorns and sparkles and stuff like that. And I gotta say, the one on the far left was a recreation of another card that I saw on one of those blogs, so I can't take credit for that one. I want to give that out there. Can't take full credit, but it definitely inspired me to create one very similar to it, and I think it came out pretty well. So, tools that I use whenever I'm doing my crafting. A lot of times I'm going to be using photopolymer stamps, just like the ones that you see over on the left side there. So clear stamps that you ink up, and then you can either stamp them, or there are other tools that help you stamp them onto paper. I use metal dies to cut things out. I also use the Cricut to make different shapes and stuff like that. I use markers or inks to finish out my designs and stuff like that. Really basic stuff, really easy to use, and everybody has stuff like this in their, my goals or stuff like that. But the biggest problem that I have as I'm going through my crafting journey is it's a female-dominated world, and I'm a male in that world. So it's really hard for me to find stamps and dies and stuff that I like, because a lot of it is florals or butterflies or all this crazy stuff. These are some incredibly talented women that are in the crafting market, but I just don't fit very well into their market, right? So that's why, another reason why I like being able to customize and make my own cards is because I'm able to do these really crazy cards that someone like, I mean, the pillow that you saw back there, do you think you'd be able to find that in the store? Probably not. It's probably going to be something cutesy or fun or, you know, something like that, and I'm not really geared to that. There are some males in the crafting world, but like I said, they're limited and few and far between. Tim Holtz is the gentleman up top there. He is known for grunge. He likes grunge and vintage and all these really great things that most female crafters do enjoy, but I feel that he kind of speaks more towards what I do and what I enjoy. So it's really hard to find different things that I like and I can do in the crafting world, and that's why I have to customize a lot of the things that I take on. A lot of stamp sets that I buy, I have to figure out a way to personalize it, to make it mine, and figure out what I want to do to make that mine, make it my own territory, basically. What is my design process? Well, it starts off pretty simple. I have to get inspired. Every good creation has to have inspired. No matter what somebody is making, there's usually a problem that they have to solve, or a topic that they need to take care of, or some outside of the box thinking that they're doing, right? So we always have to get inspired before we get creative. How does that happen? It starts off with a stamp set sometimes. These are the different things that I kind of get inspired with. I'll see a stamp set that I like, and I'll base my card design off of that stamp set, right? Color palette. Sometimes there are color challenges on the internet. So how many of y'all have heard of Pantone's Color of the Year? Yeah, so every year Pantone, they have a color that comes out, and they say, oh, this is going to be the color that everyone is going to be using, or this is the color that every industry is going to be using, and this is going to be the color of the year, right? Some companies pay lots and lots of money, too much in my opinion, but they pay lots and lots of money in order to get that information prior to Pantone announcing it, so that way they can jump on that market and get going with it. Last year was Ultraviolet, this year is Living Coral, which I'm not wearing any of at this moment, but they go with those colors, and so a lot of times at the beginning of the year I'll take that color on and I'll find a way to challenge myself to create cards or create crafts using that color. There's sometimes a design theme that I'm working from. Maybe it's some sort of challenge that uses a layout, and I have to follow that layout to create a card with that design. Hashtag events, everybody loves hashtags, and so a lot of times there are hashtag events that go across YouTube, the internet, something like that. And yes, I do want to jump on the bandwagon because I would like to have views. So I'll jump on that bandwagon and figure out how to modify it, or if it's already one that I can go for, I'll jump on it and run with it. A technique, sometimes there's a technique that I want to focus on in my video, so I'll figure out a card that works around that technique. A new product, a lot of times there are new products coming out every single month, it feels like. So sometimes I'll jump on a new product and figure out how can I create a video around it, or what can I do with that product to make a video. Most of the time it's laziness, to be 100% honest. I get lazy and I'll use a material that's been sitting on my craft desk usually for months. Either haven't used it or maybe I used it a couple of videos ago, and I'll just grab it again. It's fine, right? Next I'll go into what I call brainstorming. It's really procrastination. In fact, right now, as we are talking, I'm procrastinating on getting my next video ready in my head right now. So as we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, what am I going to do for the video that I'm going to be recording this weekend? I do put out videos once a week, so it's really rigorous going through the process of having to do all of this, but it's still good. I plan out my materials and tools, procrastinate some more, and then I sit down and make it happen. Usually I'm coming up on the deadline, and so I need to get a video edited out, and so I'll sit there and You know, sometimes people work best under pressure. I'm not one of those, but I still usually end up being like, okay, I've got to do it right now or it's not going to happen. Then of course I have to edit the video, which usually takes just about as long as it did to shoot the video, and then I upload it onto YouTube. One of the biggest things that I always have to tell myself, failure's always an option. Yeah, it happens. Sometimes things just don't go the way we plan, and the best part about what I do, nobody's gonna die. It's gonna be okay, right? So in my little studio, it's kind of awkward because I'm talking to myself a lot of times. It's awkward that I'm actually talking to other people tonight right now. But a lot of times I'm sitting there talking to a camera, and the world is out there. The world is on the other side of that camera lens, right there in fact. And they're all watching what I'm doing. So I think that's what's made me so successful, is the fact that I show my mess ups. I show what's wrong. I show that I messed something up, and I showed how to get around it, how to figure it out. A lot of times you see these beautiful cards, Martha Stewart. Let's go with her for an example, right? We know Martha Stewart as like the bar that sets everything else, right? And she is great, but I'm sure she messes up somewhere, and I would love to see that happen. But she wants, her image, of course, is going to be perfection, right? Would you buy something from Martha Stewart if it wasn't perfect? No, you want to see that perfection and be like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. She sells this product, I buy this product, I'm gonna make it perfectly every single time, right? Not exactly how it works out, and so I think that's what the appeal of my channel is that I show these mess ups and I show how to get around them, like how to work with them. You saw right there, I dropped the ink. That's a pretty typical problem that happens in the crafting world. So we figure out how to make it work and run with that, basically. So there are times on my YouTube channel videos whenever I create something and midway through I realize, you know what, this is just not going to work. So then I start planning, how can I recover this, right? We gotta do CPR to it. How are we gonna recover this card and get it out there? And a lot of times it works. We figure it out. You figure out a tool, you figure out, you know, maybe you have something laying around that you're able to jump on and take it and run with it, right? So there's a lot of great things that I love about YouTube and that I love about being a YouTuber. And community is definitely one of them. Again, community of makers. Anybody on YouTube, they're a maker as well. So the community out there is just so awesome and so supportive most of the time. Is there YouTube drama? Absolutely. Like, what industry doesn't have YouTube drama? You'll hear a lot of times, a lot of YouTubers talk about the algorithm. It is the most, it's like the bane of our existence on YouTube, right? The algorithm is a love-hate relationship. You put a video out there, you hope it's gonna land, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. It's really crazy to watch how these videos run their life, and a video that you don't think, like, there's been a couple of videos that I put out, and I'm like, God, this video sucked, nobody's gonna watch this, right? And then, shoo, it takes off like a rocket, and you're like, oh crap, okay, cool, great, yay. And then you put in some hard work and time into another video, and you're like, oh yeah, this video is gonna make it, it's gonna do great, and then suddenly it just rock bottom, nobody views it, and it gets shoved off into a corner of YouTube somewhere never to be seen again. So it's a wild beast, and it's a wild journey, and I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to kind of run with this journey and explore. I did get to go to VidCon back a couple of years ago, and that was a fun experience getting to meet and collaborate with other YouTubers and kind of go on their journey with them and understand like how different we all are, but how awesome our lives kind of interweave and stuff like that. So pretty awesome, and I like what I do, but it definitely can be quite interesting sometimes. So also, not only am I a maker of greeting cards, I have to say this because I have two lovely ladies in the audience who join me. I'm actually president of the Fort Worth Modern Quilt Guild as well, so yes, I quilt. But it's a modern quilting, so I love being able to take bright colors and bright patterns and kind of create some really awesome artwork with that. And I think the modern quilting to me is such a great experience, and I love it because we kind of break the rules, right? Rule breaking is a lot of fun. They're shaking their heads at me because they're with me on this one. It's rule breaking, right? We can do whatever we want and call it art. It's kind of cool. It's kind of awesome. So, whatever. Anyways, so yeah, that's kind of my journey and my experience in a nutshell. It's hard to kind of wrap that all up in a nice little package in such a short amount of time, but that's a little bit about me, and I hope you will take some time to subscribe to my YouTube channel and laugh along with me, because I enjoy laughing, and as you see, I'm definitely not perfect.
Thank you, Ian. That's great. I learned so much more even about what you're doing. It was amazing. We have some time for questions. If anybody has any questions of Ian about his creative process, or about some of his projects, or even about, I know you use a lot of technology.
I do, yeah.
And, I mean, besides Cricut,
Yep.
which I wasn't even aware of that tool.
Yep.
But if anybody has any questions, we got one over here.
How did you come about the idea of using your conductive thread in your quilt that you put in the show?
Cool.
Conductive thread. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So conductive thread, as the name implies, it conducts electricity. And I use conductive fabric to create a quilt that was interactive. So I love technology and I love quilting. And so taking those two and kind of combining them has been a passion of mine. I'm still working on that. That's the project that I kind of work on in the back of my head. And so I entered a quilt that was conductive into a competition show, a quilt show. What was that, last year? Last year. And I will say that the ladies who were in the show were kind of like, what is this? They had no idea what I was doing with it. But I love being able to combine those and being able to touch and feel. And a lot of times when you go to a quilt show, you don't get that. Like, you can just look at them and they're pretty, and like you can't really interact with them. So I wanted something that was interactive and fun, and also to get a younger audience into in fabrics, because a lot of times it's the older generation that is working with quilting and doing sewing and stuff like that. So I wanted to try and inspire a younger generation to get in and be like, oh, fabrics is cool. Quilting is cool, even though it doesn't sound like it. Like, quilting can be really cool, right? So I wanted to be able to hopefully inspire that next generation, so that way we can get some new makers in there. Ooh, good question. So using that conductive thread and conductive fabric, I hooked it up to a Makey. Has anybody worked with a Makey before? Keyboard emulator, basically. So it pretends to be different keys on the keyboard. And I used my laptop and routed specific music notes to those keys. So whenever somebody was touching the center of the quilt and then touching the musical notes that were around that, they would be basically pressing a key on the keyboard, which would then play the sound related to that key. So kind of working with it that way. I have another idea for an interactive quilt that I'm still toying with that would work with how far away someone is from the quilt. It would interact in that way, so as you got closer, something would happen. As you move farther away, it would reduce. So kind of working with that.
This is where your science and your art mash up.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't mention that Ian works, and when you come back, you're still on the tech truck, right?
Yes.
So we have a tech truck that's Tinker, Engineer, Create, and Hack that goes out to kids after school programs around the whole Metroplex. And I've always admired, in the 2 years that I've been working here, what Ian's abilities are, not only to create, but also with the technology, and then the ability to connect with people too. So I'm sure you got a little bit of that today. Does anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
So, when somebody asks you how to become more creative, what do you suggest?
How to become more creative?
Oh, that's always a tough one, because a lot of times people will come up to me and they'll be like, well, I'm not artistic. And I'm like, okay. It's not about being artistic. It's not about like all this, being able to craft or being able to paint or being able, like, that's cool, and everybody has a certain skill that they hone in on. So I had a kid come in and he was talking to me about, he's not very creative, he doesn't really feel very creative, but he started talking about coding. And he jumped on that coding and started telling me all these, like, I know very basic code, like way bottom level, right? He was way up here and he was telling me how he solved these problems and how he like did all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, so there you are, you're creative. He's like, wait, what? I'm like, coding, solving problems in a way that other people wouldn't or hadn't thought of before. You're creative, but it's in a different way, right? So we're all creative in some form or fashion. Maybe somebody's better at math, maybe somebody's better at, there's a million different things out there that we can be creative in. It doesn't just have to be painting, art, drawing, anything like that. So think about it, kind of back yourself up, because we all get in this bubble of like, oh, I have to be creative in one form. No, think about it further back. Think how you are creative, how you are coming up with creative solutions, and as I say, hacking, which I don't mean stealing credit cards, because your credit cards are safe, okay? But I mean like taking a problem and making it your own, outside the box thinking. How can you solve that problem?
Any other questions before one more, here we go.
Where are you going next? Where are you taking your crafting next?
I wish I knew. That's the journey on YouTube. It's like you never know what the next turn is going to be. The goal right now, of course, would be hit 100,000 subscribers. So I'd love for y'all to help me out. The goal right now is 100,000. The next big step up is at 10,000. You can apply for the Next Up program on YouTube, where they fly you out to the YouTube space. You get access to their equipment, their tools, all these great things, and then you also get a scholarship. So that's the next goal. 100,000 would be great, but also I'm just having fun. Like that's kind of the whole thing, is making sure that I have fun during this journey, because if you're not having fun, then what's the point of doing it, right? I think we all find that way to have the fun, have the uniqueness, and that's kind of what I'm going on. So where this journey goes, I have no idea, but I'm having fun along the way.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ian. And I
Thank
think,
you.
speaking of fun, where did our Lego sculpture land? Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, who was the last person to touch it of the guests?
Oh.
Who was it? Okay, this is super impressive. I think I need to give it to okay, do you want to come name it? Do you want to try and describe it? Or does it, well, not to put you on the spot, but if you don't want to, we'll give you a second. But I want to, Digger. Oh, I like Digger. You guys like Digger? Can you see that? Hold on. Can you see it?
Yeah. Yeah.
This
pretty
is
awesome.
so impressive. And I just want to connect the dots here and say, you're all makers.
Mm-hmm.
Look what we all created together tonight. And I just want to also just acknowledge Ian for the inspiration and for coming out and coming back, even though I know you're not really gone.
I'm not gone yet.
I know, but he's toe dipping with us. Oh, did you have one more question? Yeah, go ahead.
I want to change the name.
Oh.
Okay, changing the name.
Can you dig it?
Can you dig
oh,
it?
That's it.
Oh, I
right
saw a lot of
there.
nodding heads.
Yes.
That's awesome. Let's give
Good job.
Ian a huge round of applause and appreciation. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for helping to create this. Maybe you might want to put this on YouTube or something. Enjoy the rest of Social Science Night. Feel free to come on down and chat with our Kilter Crafter, and I hope that you'll enjoy the rest of the evening. Thanks again.
Thank you, everyone.